Welcome. Thank you for joining us for another edition of What's Next for Financial Advisors, the podcast. I am Bill Rambo, one of the founding partners of What's Next, and we are joined by an illustrious group of co-presenters today. When we do these podcasts, we do them basically in one of two categories. A story to tell is more the food for the soul, the story behind the story of what motivates people, what drives them. And then sometimes we do, as we are today, a story focused on this is how we do it. Cue to music. No music. Anyway, so this is how we do it. And today, when it comes to sourcing, vetting, hiring people in the financial services industry, we have people who absolutely know how to do it. That would be Duane and Stephanie Roberts of Humans Being Resources. And I'll fall and stumble over that once or twice. But before we actually say hi to Duane and Stephanie, let me introduce my co-host friend. I don't know what the heck he's doing here, but he'll probably say something intelligent at some point. My good friend and partner, Mr. Ben Mossman. Hello there, Ben. How are you?
Hello, Bill. I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Well, you're doing well so far. You got that line. You nailed that line. You nailed that one.
All right. Off to a good start.
And behind the scenes, behind the scenes is our expert producer and director, Mr. Brandon Kirst. And he'll make sure that whatever we say actually makes sense, even if we do everything we can to not make it so. So anyway, having put all that out there, Duane, Stephanie, great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us today. Say hello and tell us a little bit about the company.
All right. Want me to go first?
Ladies
You were
first.
going first.
Well, here we go. Anyway, they are married. So we're going to have some of this back and forth. We're going to have Ben is going to referee here and there. It's going to get a little ugly. It's okay.
I let her think she's the boss. It works.
Oh,
Well, thank you for having us. As Bill said, I'm Stephanie. I'm one of the owners of Humans Being Resources, and we are a recruiting firm that specializes in hiring for the financial services industry.
And I'm Duane Roberts, another co-owner of Humans Being Resources, again, specializing in sourcing and recruiting for financial services, accounting, and insurance.
And so the first question, there are a lot of questions today that we want to get to about what you do, how you do it, how it's different, how it's more beneficial. We have seen that over 7 or 8 years now of working together, and we very much appreciate your partnership. But inquiring minds want to know a couple of things. Number one, who has the larger share of ownership?
She does.
Me.
Yep, she does.
Well played, sir. Well played.
It's designed that way.
And then number two, I have a bit of a situation like that. As you all know, my wife, Molly Rambo, is a very successful financial advisor. And her office is out in the back in the renovated garage, beautiful office. She has clients there and does a lot of work. And I don't work with her, but I interact with her. And I have learned, and I'd love your guidance on this, Duane, I have learned that, like, if I'm on a break, if Ben lets me out of a meeting early because he's a slave drive. Anyway, if he lets me out of a meeting early, I'll sometimes run out the back door and just want to go check in and see how my beautiful bride is doing. But I've learned over the years, because she's a very focused, hardworking person. I think I got that right. Very focused, hardworking. Yes. That when I walk in, I have learned to stand at attention just inside the door until she actually looks up from her monitor and acknowledges me. What's it like for you two working together? Inquiring minds want to know.
I was going to say, I think Duane needs to take some tips from you. Sounds like you might have some good tricks that he could learn.
Well, we are after all a coaching firm, so we can.
On in and starts asking me a question while I'm typing away.
Yeah, it gets interesting, and then I get the look, and I know you know what the look is because every husband knows what the look is.
Now, Ben, you don't have the benefit of working directly with your spouse, the lovely Chris Mossman, but you do get to work with Tate Kirst. Any thoughts there?
I guess there's some similarities. If I had to think about it, much like at home, I'm wrong, even when I'm right with Tate. So no, it's I am lucky to work with Tate. Deeply admire him, view him as a friend. It is a pleasure.
Well played. Well played.
And he really is the progenitor of this relationship. Years ago at the National Financial Services firm, when I think he's probably the one that built the relationship with humans being resources. And so, and as I said, it's going back 7, 8, maybe 9 years now. And it's been wonderful. You've helped a number of advisors that we work with, and let's dig into it now. So what would you like to share with us first, maybe about your respective roles in the company? And then we'll get into more of what Humans Beings Resources does and what people should be aware of. So who would like to start? Stephanie.
All right. Although I thought we were saving the best for last, so
Well,
I
then
would go. But that's okay. I will go first. So to answer your question, as far as my respective role within the company, I mean, I do it all. No, I'm kidding. We always like to tell everybody I'm kind of the face of the company. I am the one that really enjoys the networking, building relationships, and I am also over the actual recruiting department because of my recruiting background. I oversee our employees that do the sourcing and all the recruiting and vetting of candidates. And I also do a lot of our client intake calls. So when a client is getting onboarded, I'm kind of the point of contact after they have their conversation with Duane. It's then pivoted over to me to gather all the information, just to really make sure we're addressing their real concerns and going to target the right candidates.
And as far as I go, my role is pretty much jack of all trades. I keep the lights on. I keep things running, financials, operations, things like that. I do handle the majority of product review calls. Some would call it maybe sales calls with new clients, potential accounts, and just talk about what we offer, features and benefits of our hiring packages, and help them determine what may be the right choice for them based on their needs.
Cool.
He's also a great chef too. He does a lot of our lunches and gets me coffee and water. So it's great.
I would think he's the boss.
And actually, Ben is a fantastic chef. In addition, as you are going to be a great musician, and so Ben will normally hum a sonata or something, just lovely, gently, while we're at lunch, and he won't eat. He stays so thin. Ben, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just remind people about what we do at What's Next. Do you want to take a jab at that?
Sure. Yeah, What's Next? We help advisors, financial advisors, identify their next levels of success if they haven't already done so, and the steps necessary to reach them. We combine guidance, ideas, feedback, accountability, coaching, sometimes a shoulder to cry on, and in many cases, rolling up our sleeves and helping advisors actually do the work to get them where they want their businesses to be. Is that succinct enough, Bill?
That is, yes. And okay. We do partner with excellent firms like Humans Being Resources, where to provide those services and tools where we are not expert or we don't have the capability to do so. So it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. So, Duane, let's talk one more time. I'm going to take one more bite at the apple of what is it like to work with your spouse. But then let's get more specifically, and I'm just going to keep picking at that. Right. Maybe we can get it. Maybe we can get them to, like nudge each. Anyway, what is it like to work with your spouse? And then let's talk more specifically about how you go about doing what you do, how it's different, how it's better. I mean, I know there are job boards and things out there that people can use, and they have their pluses and mostly minuses. But anyway, what's it like to work with that lovely lady?
Well, we've definitely had to go through some growing pains on office geography. We at one point we worked literally pretty much right next to each other. That didn't work out so well. We did it for quite a while because we're kind of stubborn in some ways. But that was a challenge because, as she said, she handles a lot of the networking for the business. So she's on video calls and phone calls all the time, all day. And it's, when you're dealing with things like I deal with, like operational things, assessments, setting up campaigns, working on accounting, it's pretty hard to concentrate when you've got that going on right next to you. So we do work in separate areas of the home. When we created the company in January of 2016, we decided right away that we were going to go ahead and make sure that this was a fully remote company. So we were ahead of the curve when COVID hit. We really didn't miss a beat because we already had everyone remote. So that worked to our advantage, but we decided that, quality of life for our employees was going to be really important to us. And we wanted to give them that opportunity to be able to work remotely from home, which obviously benefited us as well.
And you're located in Florida, right?
We're physically located in Florida, but we have other employees in other states and
So,
other areas.
Stephanie, tell us about the makeup of the rest of the team, if you would.
Yeah. So we have, obviously Duane and I are, a lot more of the client facing side. And then we have recruiting team that does all the sourcing and phone interviews. And then we have an administrative account manager who oversees a lot of the scheduling of interviews once clients are ready to set up interviews. So we have somebody that assists in that piece of it as well.
And what about backgrounds? Your backgrounds, what brought you to this? How did you get here? Why are you here? And what the heck keeps you here in a very, very tough,
Some days I ask myself that. Like, what in the world?
I mean, I'm only here because I get to work with Ben and Brandon, and Kate. Anyway, how'd you get? Why this role?
So
It's all her fault. It's all her fault.
Okay, here it goes, Ben. This is what I wanted.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted.
We kind of have a diverse little background, I would say. So I have previously owned stores in my past. I was really into fashion. I thought that was what I was going to school for. I was going to major in fashion merchandising. My mom is a human resource director, so I always kind of grew up around that industry. And so after I owned a couple boutiques out in Kansas, actually, I decided to pivot and I got into sales. And then from there, I got into recruiting. So I became a recruiter with a temporary staffing agency. So I got that side of it. And then I went and was working for an agency that was partnered with a large FMO within the financial industry and was working within recruiting in that space. And then it was about, as you mentioned, a little over 8 years ago, we were welcoming our son. And after discussions, kind of just decided, this is a good opportunity for us to really use our entrepreneurial spirit and the knowledge and skills that we both have and create our own recruiting firm. When we initially started, we thought that we were going to kind of be in every industry possible. Let's just work with anybody and everybody. We knew we did not want to do temp service because that was my background. So I was familiar with that. We knew we did not want to go down that path. Everything was going to be permanent. However, due to just a lot of the relationships and network that I had already built, it really took us down financial services. And finally, it was a few years ago is when we decided, we just need to niche down and say financial industry is what we're focusing in. And it has been. That's where we've built a lot of partners and a lot of relationships and continue to grow just within this space because we know it's an area, as we hear all the time, where we're needed. And, unfortunately, a lot of advisors, they're really good at what they do, but they're financial advisors. They're not hiring managers, and it's not something they enjoy doing. So that's where we come in and can be a great resource. But I'll let you tell your background now that I took the stage for a while.
Yeah.
And right.
Well, I guess I was kind of a brunt, right? So I started out in automotive when I was 16 years old as an oil change and tire technician, and always wanted more. I was always a very motivated person. Played sports. I was an athlete, musician, and so I was always very driven. And so through hard work, kind of against the grain, I worked my way up in the automotive industry to eventually oversee several dealerships simultaneously for a very large dealer group across the United States, and overseeing their fixed operations. So that included their service departments, their parts departments, their detail departments, their PDI departments, and all the facilities. And so with that, there's this huge turnover problem in automotive. And I wanted to combat that. I wanted to break the mold, so to speak, on that problem. And so I really, really worked hard at becoming better at hiring, because I wanted to make sure the people that I was bringing in were not just temporary fill-ins, for 6 months, a year, whatever it may be. I wanted people who found a home and really enjoyed what they did. Their personalities matched their position, so it was very comfortable for them, and it worked out really well. I built some really great teams. I won a lot of awards, made some good money, and I made lifelong friends. I've got former employees of mine, managers that I mentored that still connect with me today on a very regular basis, and that's the sense of pride that I have, that I was able to create something like that. So in that process, I had to start researching tools and what could I use to make more strategic long-term hires. And so I really, and I don't want to ship into our products, but our products are designed around that. And the way that our company came to be was, much like everyone else, you have dinner table conversations with your spouse, right? And so I'm listening to Stephanie tell me about the things that she is combating when she's dealing with the financial industry. And I'm saying, we can do this better. We can do this so much better. There's a lot of reasons why I didn't hire recruiters when I was in my industry. And I said, let's overcome all those objections that I had. Let's just get rid of those for everyone, and let's offer sensible, logical options for hiring managers who might be experienced and who may not be experienced, either one. And so that's how the company came to be.
I can picture, Ben, I bet you can as well. I can picture conversations around the dinner table where my wife tells me what's going to happen as well. That's pretty much the urge.
Yeah, it's pretty common.
Man, do me a favor, from our perspective. I mean, we work with tons of advisors across the country, different models, different, affiliation models, different structures. Help amplify some of what they said about the need, because we hear it every day from the people.
Yeah, we do. It is, you talked about the automotive industry, Duane. I mean, in financial services, I know I'm preaching to the choir in this group, but it is such a big need. I think many broker dealers have gotten away from really developing young advisors at large, but also staff. And, Stephanie, I think you alluded to it as well. Financial advisors, our clients are very good financial advisors. Many of them are self-proclaimed terrible business owners, and they need help in these areas. And it's something that they just don't know how to go about doing the process, or maybe they do and they just don't want to take that on. So the end result of saying, hey, you need to talk to Duane and Stephanie doesn't always start with an advisor raising their hand and saying, I need to hire. Sometimes they don't know that's the solution. They come to us with other symptoms of what's going on. And through some of those conversations, it may be that, hey, you don't have the right people in the right positions, or you just don't have the right people. And that's where, some of the issues that they're facing can be solved with not just hiring, but following the right process, doing it the right way and developing people the right way. And that's exactly what Duane and Stephanie fit in.
And I'm going to let Duane and Stephanie pick up on this, but I've got to mention two things. First, number one, we have tools in our work tool chest, to help monitor, not just to look back at how a firm is doing, but to track specific ratios and data that will also be predictive, analytic and predictive in terms of saying, hey, it's probably time for you to get ready to hire. Right, Ben?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of those metrics, they're out there, and understanding, from a financial advisor's perspective, understanding what your business is telling you through your ratios, your key metrics is so crucial. This is just one of those areas with staff and capacity that, really you should be paying attention to that if you're not as an advisor. It really does lead to those decisions.
And Duane, Duane and Stephanie, I think you know this, but one of the other services I want to make sure Ben spends a minute or two on this that we provide that I don't think you're hiring for advisors. So we'll provide it. You can hire us to hire for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is our C-level services. So Ben, take a minute or two and talk about those C-level services we're providing, because that really is. I was sharing a story today about how an advisor's business is just exploding in the right way for once because of the work you're doing with him and his team.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, and the C-level services, really, we designed this to be much more of a flexible, hands-on kind of a version of our coaching and consulting, but it is really fit for an advisor that makes the decision that for whatever reason, for example, they want to be in front of their clients and prospects. The rest of the operations of their business, they may not have the time for, may not have the patience for, or may just want to get that off of their plate. Our C-level services allow us to jump in there with our knowledge of the industry. We have all run financial services practices. We've been there. So dropping us in to help them run operations, to train and develop staff, among many other areas within their business, to allow them then to get in front of the people that they need to be in front of. So very highly customized. Think of it as a fractional CEO, CFO, COO, CMO in some cases, but very highly customized to what that advisor is looking for.
And very powerful. Just we have some tremendous examples of the positivity and the results that come out of it. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. Humans being resources. Duane and Stephanie Roberts, let's start to get into it more deeply. So what would you say separates how you do what you do from other firms out there? Why you?
Great question. I mean, I can think of many reasons why us. However, I would say our knowledge, the industry knowledge that we have from, me specifically working within financial services. I'm familiar with, what type of candidates really stick it out and work within these type of offices. But also our resources we have available, the tools we use to vet candidates, our more passive approach. I think you mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of job boards out there. We all know that there's a lot of job boards available where an employer can post a job. However, they're extremely flooded nowadays. So that's just taking that approach is very difficult. So you really need somebody or a firm that is going to, as Duane always says, cast a wider net, almost like fishing, I guess. And that's what we do. We search for passive candidates. We're not just going to sit and wait for somebody to apply to a job. We have a big network available to us, but we also have different databases to search for passive candidates and really, market a good message to them to attract them to the position and then put them through the process. And our fees also, I would say, it's just, we don't do a percentage. We're flat fee. We offer different options based on the type of process that the client is looking for, how much, resources they want to go into it. So I definitely would say we're really competitive in that area.
Very cost competitive. Absolutely. It's amazing what people get for what you charge, and they get quality work. Duane, what else would you like to add to that? And then let's start to talk about what people, what are your perspectives on the industry and hiring? But anything else you'd like to add about why the company stands out so much in your mind?
Yeah, so like I said, when we created the company, I wanted to really take a logical, strategic approach to our offerings. But we also do that when it comes to sourcing. So I'm going to give Stephanie a little more credit here. One of the things she brought to the company and brings to the team on a regular basis is her perspectives on candidates and how to find them. She's a candidate detective. She's just good at finding people who aren't necessarily looking. I'm more of the statistical guy, so I will say that over the last 3 years running now, over 72% of our placements come from those efforts, from sourcing and finding passive candidates. So, less than 30% come from candidates answering a job board ad. Job board ads are just not that effective anymore, just being honest. We still utilize them because we still want that 28 or so percent. We're not going to just walk away from that. But, you put in a search for a financial advisor in Tampa, Florida, for example, you're probably going to find 100. I think the last time I checked, it was 127 open positions. You all know financial advisors and their personality types. They're not going to sit down and look through 100 ads. I mean, they're just not. And so, that's what we keep in mind. And we go and we actually, more Stephanie and the recruiting team goes and really hunts those candidates down that aren't looking at the job boards because, frankly, they don't have to. They've got recruiting firms and headhunters contacting them. So they can kind of pick and choose between opportunities rather than going out and sifting through all those open job ads. So basically, when a client approves a job posting, we go right away aggressively into the market, and we try to find as many candidates as we can that fit the minimum, at least the minimum or greater criteria of that job posting we helped create. But also, we try to look for candidates who have transferable skills, right? So there's a shortage of candidates right now, which is why there's so many job board ads out there, especially in financial services, accounting, and tax. We know the supply and demand issues that are out there right now. So if you have candidates that are out there that have transferable skills, maybe from another industry, that are strong, that based on personality, based on their prior job duties and skill set, that they might be able to plug into a client service specialist or a financial advisor assistant, for example. Being open-minded to that, I think helps fill a lot of positions where I do see also that advisors, they typically tend to get tunnel vision when they're looking for candidates. They're looking for specifically candidates with a certain experience and don't look any farther than that. And so they don't find a lot of candidates or people who have those transferable skills. And so I think that's where we come into play, where our recruiting team and Stephanie's guidance really comes into play.
We've talked about that in a specific situation or two in the last year, where the suggestion was, hey, let's look at somebody who's only partially licensed, because there are more of them out there, and if they have the other requisite skills, we can grow them into an excellent team member and make licensing part of the condition of employment or something like that. I mean, you
Absolutely.
Put that into better words than I just did, please.
But you're right. That's where else, as we were saying, when you could say why us, I think the fact that we specialize in this industry, it allows us to educate the clients further based on our experience and what we see. And so we can help guide them a little better. Whereas if we were specializing in, warehouse management or something,
right,
we would have our hands in so many different pieces. I don't know that the level of education to the clients would be there. So,
and that's the thing. Even when we started the company, we never really dove into, labor type positions or anything like that. We wanted to stay away from the temporary, more fluid positions. And we wanted to stay within industries that we knew had a great need for hiring quality individuals that were going to be long-term placements. And so that's why we focused on these industries. It was just a good fit. We see that, we can help out a lot.
Now, I want to spend a few minutes and have you go through some of the things, some of the perspectives that people who hire you should understand from your perspective. Here's what you need to be aware of. But Ben, do you have? I know you have some questions that you came up with along the way. Anything you want to jump in with at this minute?
Not a question, but I did want to add something to the why you guys. And we get feedback from advisors that we've introduced to Stephanie and Duane and their team that have gone through the process, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback, but specifically from those advisors that have gone through traditional recruiting or recruiters in the past that have told us, we felt like with people we've worked with previously, they just wanted to get a hire. They wanted to get somebody in place and move on. And really what they were, blown away by your process is that they really felt from you guys and your team that you guys wanted to get the right person there. And that led to, very direct conversations about compensation. Were they offering enough? Was it the right type of position? Did they have the right expectations for that role? And they really appreciated those direct conversations because, again, it shows that, hey, these guys they're dedicated to getting someone in there who's going to stick, not just checking off in the box and moving on. So that's been great feedback from our advisors.
Thank you for sharing it.
appreciate it.
So what are some of the perspectives? What are some of the things people need to understand or be able to have you help them understand as they look to engage with you? I know one of them is if you're going to engage, even though it's not a ton of money, you guys are very, very competitively priced, but they still need to be ready and committed to actually hiring someone. That's one that, comes to mind immediately. What other perspectives should they have in mind or be bringing to the table?
I think it just kind of like you said, Bill, a lot of it is just the timeline and, understanding that when you're ready to make that decision and you're ready to move forward with our process, we're looking for a commitment in regards to the candidates and how fast we move them through the process. Because as we said, it is a very hard market still. There's not a lot of candidates out there, just looking that's just around the block. So it takes a lot of work. And so when we do find one that meets those qualifications that a client is looking for, it's very important that we make them a priority and we move them through the process because we will lose them.
And it's also important, I know you've said this plenty of times on calls with us and with clients, Duane, that it's important that the advisors, the hiring party, not leave people in limbo, that they're very up to date and keeping up on communications.
Well, let's be honest. These positions, a lot of the positions we help fill, they're tech savvy, right? They know how to get on Google. They know how to get on Glassdoor. They know how to get on these review boards and, have a negative opinion of a client that might be dragging them on. And frankly, a lot of times when that happens, they just leave. Because there's other opportunities out there. So the candidate moves on to the next opportunity because they usually, I think the last data I saw was a article I read from Indeed not that long ago that most candidates in financial services are considering 4 to 5 job opportunities simultaneously. So you're really, as a hiring manager, you're competing. And one of the things that like Stephanie said about valuing the candidate's time. One of the things, sometimes we have to have hard conversations with clients because we want to educate them and guide them. And sometimes I have to say to them when they're saying, "Oh yeah, I have an opening for an interview 2 weeks from now." I have to say, "When's your next opening for a client? Would you do that to your client? If your client wanted to meet with you in 2 or 3 days, could you do it?" And they say yes. And so, you're potentially hiring, I guess, a perspective like you were asking for. You're potentially hiring an individual that's going to, in some way, shape or form, touch 100 plus of those clients. And if you can't take the time to treat them with the same value as you would a client, get them in a reasonable amount of time, and respect their time and respect the fact that they might be making a choice on what firm to work for, much like your client is making a choice of what firm to do business with, then that's a problem. If you can't recognize that, you're going to keep running into roadblocks when it comes to hiring.
And something you said prompts me to ask about the tools you use, pre-screening and that type of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about those and how they help?
Sure.
I was asking the boss who should take this one. So, like I said earlier, we did create 3 packages. We really don't guide a client to pick one or the other. We're not a salesy firm. That's just not how we operate. Like Ben said, a lot of other recruiting firms that all they care about is making a placement, making some money, and moving on. That's not how we operate. We just want to be open and honest and transparent about how we do our business. And we want the client to make the choice on the level of hiring package that they select. So whether you want a candidate to only go through a phone interview, which obviously we have an advantage because of our experience in the industry right there alone. But, if you want them to go through personality profiling, if you want to do office matching on personality profiling, making sure that the new candidate is going to match with your current office culture, that's a great tool that we offer. Integrity surveying is very good. Really, it really dives into the candidate's workplace belief system on right and wrong, dealing with subjects like theft and things within the workplace or conflict within the workplace, to get their viewpoints on that. It's good information. Assessments, obviously skills assessments that are appropriate for the position you're hiring. And then in our elite package, we actually offer also a one-way recorded video interview, which I think there's not a ton of recruiting firms that offer that out there.
And explain that a little further, please, a little more deeply.
I'll let her take it.
So the one-way video interview is part of our elite package, and it's a link that we email over to the candidate after we phone screen them and still feel that they're qualified for the position. Then we send them that link, and it's 5 questions. And they record it on their own time. And it is a little awkward. It is a little different. So we do educate our clients that, it's not meant to eliminate based on
polish
the way that you're interacting.
Yeah.
Right. So there's 5 questions. And then once it's completed, we share that as part of the submittal kind of package when we send it over to the client. So then the client can just view it on their own time and see how the candidate responds.
Now, can you go back? Can we go back a second? And can you do you have it within your power to go back and maybe do integrity profiling even after you've started to work with 2 other guys, or is it too late?
Probably too late, Bill.
Too late. Okay.
Sorry.
And for assessment tools, I remember taking one 40 years ago. Actually, later this month will be 40 years in the industry, and it's kind of why the cries are getting louder for me to get out. But anyway, not from me, from other people. But I took one of those assessments years ago, and as Ben knows, it said I should be a fire watcher, just someone who sits there and stares at flames. You're 50 years later. you have a nice variety and a well-rounded variety of tools to vet the candidates, right? But you also, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think the most important thing to recognize is that none of the tools that we have are really used for elimination processes, right? It's all about gathering information on a prospective candidate, because you have to look at the full package. For example, if you have an advisor that receives a vocabulary proficiency assessment on a candidate, and let's say they scored a 65%, they say, oh, I don't want to look at anyone unless we have 80% or higher. Well, then you share with them that the average score is 45. So 65 is pretty good, right, in comparison. And so I think it's important that, really these assessments, integrity survey, video interviewing, our phone interview notes, it's all information for a full package of the candidate to really, make a determination of whether or not you want to bring them in for an actual interview. All of the things we do in those packages are ahead of our client ever having to talk with the candidate directly. So we do everything on a confidential basis. The candidates do not know who our client is. We've built enough of a reputation as a recruiting firm that they still work with us, knowing that our client wants to remain anonymous until the point that they are ready to interview.
Now, I think I'm feeling it from Ben. I'm getting that look from him, the same old deadpan stare. It means so many things. You just get to know him. Anyway. That I want to start to wrap this up. But any other key perspectives that you want to make sure you share for advisors as they're moving into working with you, engaging with you to add to staff, to the team?
So I think there's just a couple of things that come to my mind that I'll point out that we didn't really touch on, but each package, we do guarantee our work. So depending on which level of package they choose, we either do a 30, 60, or 90-day guarantee on that candidate. So I think that's very important to point out because, that shows we believe in our work, so we're willing to back it. So if at any point the candidate doesn't work out within that time frame, we repost the same position and start that process again to try to find that replacement at no charge. So I think that's a good key point. And then the other key point I will make, I think we briefly touched on this, is the fact that, these advisors are very busy and they don't have a lot of time. And so their time is very valuable. Their time is worth a lot of money too. So it's better spent in other activities. So, outsourcing the recruiting part of it really saves them a lot of time so they can continue being client facing. Let us handle it. We save them we did a research and how much time on average we can.
I believe it was about 120 hours per hire. So that, when you extrapolate that into whatever they might bring into the firm revenue wise in an hour, that becomes huge. A large number.
Yeah. So I think time is a key thing to point out.
And I think something else that they should think about too is, a lot of advisors, a lot of small businesses don't have access to these tools that we've discussed. But more importantly, they don't know which ones they can and can't use. For example, I fielded a lot of calls from corporate entities that we work with that are wondering, has our personality profile been approved by federal government? Because there are requirements on that for HR and labor laws. And so, and then the American Disabilities Act and so on and so forth. And so you've got to make sure that if you're going to try this on your own, you've got to make sure you're utilizing the right tools that are going to be compliant, that aren't going to get you in trouble. And so I think that's one of the things we offer as well, is peace of mind, that when a client works with us, we're going to do things by the book. We're going to make sure that no one's going to get in trouble for doing or saying something wrong in this process. And I think that in itself offers some security to the advisor, because like we said, they're financial advisors. That's what they do. They don't want to learn the regulations around our business on top of the ones that they have to deal with for their business.
Excellent point. Go ahead, Ben.
A follow up to that, if I could, Stephanie and Duane. I mean, that's a big thing that we hear from advisors too. Is they don't know how to phrase questions the right way in an interview setting, what they can and cannot ask, and that's such a big component with all of this. And when you work with the client on your side, once a candidate gets past your screening process and gets to them, can you help guide them a little bit on that conversation and what that should look like?
Absolutely. So we actually provide templates all along the way. We're right there. We're a partner. And so when it comes to that time, when a candidate is going to be interviewed, we send over an email with some good, useful links. We send over some PDF documents with best practices and great questions for them to ask the candidates. So all along the process, all the way up to employment offer and acceptance of that employment offer and even background checks that we administer for our clients. We're there the whole time.
Great.
Excellent. So let's turn the page here. Let's start to sum up. What else do you want to share? What closing thoughts? What else should people know as we start to wind down this riveting conversation?
I think we did a really good job of, really hitting every aspect. Obviously, I'm sure there's maybe some small things we missed here and there, but I think it's like Ben said, this is a collaboration. So we really partner together from the start to the end. We're open, we're big on communication. So I have a lot of conversations with clients when they're rejecting somebody. Then I kind of interject myself and start giving my suggestions and advice to try to help re-guide it. So it is truly a partnership, and we're transparent. So anyone can go out on our website to check out our packages. All the options are there. The pricing's even out there. We believe in full transparency. So,
and
I think one thing that I'd like to mention in closing is just the synergy of our relationships, not just with the client, but also with what's next. What we do and what you do match really well for a client, right? Because you're helping develop their existing practice, their existing team, if possible. You're letting them know whether or not they should be looking at a new hire or a replacement. And that works with us. And I know in the past, just with past clients, if ever they question what we're recommending, they can talk to you about it and vice versa. And so I think it's a great relationship, and we're really grateful.
as are we. And the communication is very strong between us and enjoyable. We actually like to talk to each other. Unlike Tate and Ben and I, we don't really. So we're going to have contact information associated with this. People will be able to see at the end of the podcast where to go to reach you. But why don't you just give us one more time where to find you?
Our website, the easiest one is either humansbeingresources.com or hire.com and my LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn all day, every day. So you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I'm happy to connect.
Brandon and I see a lot of you. Yes, we're there as well. We see a lot of you. Ben is more shy than that. But anyway, Ben, last thoughts from your/our perspective, from the what's next perspective.
This is such a big topic, timely, one that gets more and more complicated and hairy, I think, as we go. So, this is great perspective. This is something for advisors that if you're out there and there's a struggle, whether you need to hire somebody, there's something else going on within the business that you need to dive into and want a second set of eyes on, it certainly may lead to something like this. So we encourage you to reach out, have the conversations, and love to help where we can. So great information, Stephanie and Duane, and very timely.
And I think I would just add that the trend that we see, Ben, we've talked about this and we've done a video or two on it, a brief video on outsourcing in general for financial advisors. And so it seems to be a trend. And I'll tell you what, you can get lucky and find a hire here and there, but the folks at Humans Being Resources, Stephanie and Duane Roberts are experts at it. They've been doing it for over 8 years now. We've worked with them in one fashion or another for all of those. We consider them just fantastic partners and are very thankful for their help and that partnership. So with that, I'd like to thank Stephanie and Duane Roberts of Humans Being Resources. I'd like to thank, well, I wouldn't, but I'm going to thank Ben Mossman, my dear partner and friend at What's Next for Financial Advisors. We want to thank the man behind the curtain, Oz himself, Mr. Brandon Kirst, for producing and directing. And I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to view this podcast, listen in, and let us know what else you'd like to hear about. Certainly reach out to Duane and Stephanie or any of us if you have additional questions or have other topics within this field or whatever. We'd be happy to address them. And so with that, I'd just like to say that I am Bill Rambo, founder and partner at What's Next for Financial Advisors. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by.
Yeah.
Thank you.